Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Phoenix Phenomenon. I'm your host, ghostwriter and writing mentor, Roxanne McCarty-O'Kane. Thank you for joining us for another exciting episode as we delve into the transformative process of becoming an author and talk to the game changers who know this journey all too well. Today, I am joined by Barry Bull, who is a six-decade Australian music industry veteran. He's a former musician and national record company executive who is best known for his multi-award winning business, Toombul Music, which he kept in the spotlight in the Australian music industry for more than 25 years, the whole time rubbing shoulders with the who's who of the Australian music industry and some international stars as well. His iconic business went on to win over 30 Westfield Retail Awards, including the prestigious National Individual Specialty Retailer 3 times. Barry is the published author of A Little Bull Goes a Long Way, My Little Book of Bull, The Bullseye Principle, Take the Bull by the Horns, as well as being the compiler of the music for Cruizin CDs released through Sony Music, for which he earned an ARIA Gold Award in 2014. Barry Bull is an acknowledged community champion for Hear and Say, as well as being an active community member for the Mooloolaba Surf Club. And in the 2019 Australia Day Honours List, Barry was awarded the Medal of the Order of Australia for service to the performing arts, particularly through music. Today, Barry is here to tell us all about the journey to writing his memoir, Unreakabull, which is one of his most personal books to date, and he'll also share some incredible insights into what it takes to plan an amazing book launch event, as well as the importance of marketing. Thank you so much, Barry, for joining us on the show today.
That's lovely to be with you, Rox. Lovely to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, anytime, and I'm glad we've been able to make it work, being that you're such a busy man, so thank you again.
My pleasure.
All right, now Barry, as I've already shared with our audience, you're no stranger to releasing best-selling books, and obviously Unreakabull is no exception. But having had your previous books picked up by traditional publishers, how did you approach this particular project differently?
Well, it's a very personal project, Rox, because as you know, I lost my lifetime partner 2 years ago, and it was suggested to me by a counsellor that I should go back and play my guitar again, which was what I was doing on stage when I lost Kayleen. And I couldn't do that, but I had counselling help, grief counselling help. And she said, well, if you can't play your music yet, why don't you write a journal about your life together? And I felt I could do that because, as you just said, I'd already written 4 previous business books, a couple of them published and one self-published. But I didn't want this to be a commercial project. It's a love story. And it was really done as narrative therapy for me. So when people tell me they're enjoying my book, I qualify that by saying to them, well, I didn't really write it for anybody else but myself. And it helped me get through this awful journey of grief. So to answer your question, I approached it as a non-commercial project, but I wanted to self-publish because I felt that that was how I'd done my previous book, Take the Bull by the Horns. And with the help from a lovely lady like yourself who helped me paginate and edit and to get the book actually printed. So I decided to be in control of it myself rather than assign copyrights and other properties to other people. I felt I'd passed that, but more importantly, it wasn't a commercial project. It was really a project that was very personal to me to talk about our life together. And you know what? It just turned out so much better than I ever thought it would, because I had freedom. I had freedom to self-express myself. I was able to pull some of the journeys out of my previous books and tell some of the stories that captivated my life earlier. And it really just helped me mend a broken heart, which is a great Bee Gees song.
Absolutely. You're a great catalogue of songs, aren't you, Barry?
Well, yeah, I just love music. It's always been part of my life. So that my book is full of words and music.
Absolutely, and it wasn't as you said, you didn't set out to make Unbreakable a book from the outset. So, what was it during your writing process that made you think that others could learn a lot from your journey and obviously learn a lot about Kayleen, the woman behind the scenes?
Well, I didn't really feel I had a book in me.
Mm,
Look, when you lose somebody, we were married for 52 years, and when you lose somebody that precious, and so suddenly too, no chance to say goodbye. She had a stroke, as you know, in the middle of a fundraising concert.
yes.
And my whole life was turned around. And so I was really didn't think I had a book. I just followed my counsellor's advice
Mm,
and wrote a journal. But she gave me good advice. She said, as things happen, write it down. And so many unexplainable things happened to me that I could never have made it up or even imagined that a story was evolving again. So as I was writing this story about our life together and all the things that we'd done together and the excitement that we had in the music industry, it was still evolving. And I started to capture it, and I started to think, wow, how did that happen? Why did that happen? I can't, and it was so beautiful that it all of a sudden started filling up chapters of my new life. So I had two books. I had a previous book of all the life that we spent together and the things that people love about our journey, which was
mm,
CBS Records in the early days and working with Billy Joel and Neil Diamond and those people that you're aware of. And then Toombul Music and all the extraordinary things we did at Toombul Music, bringing all the celebrities and the artists there and all the backstage stories about Cliff and Olivia and Jim and Jimmy and John and all the rest. That was good content for a storytelling tale. But it was once I started to begin to deal with the grief and how I was going to move forward that the doors started opening.
mm.
And all of a sudden, at one stage, I realised I had a book. I didn't think I had a book before that because I'd written a lot of the stuff before.
Yes.
And my mindset, if I could clarify that, was not in that groove. It was
Mm,
a mindset of grief and loss and feeling sorry for myself, I suppose. And I needed to get all of that out. And having a good counsellor helped me get the pain out. She just said, whatever it is, just write it out. So, my fingertips, as I was writing on the computer, I was shedding the grief. And my new life started to happen. And I felt this is really worth sharing. So many things happened. Like I felt that after the funeral, I wasn't happy with that. It
mm.
wasn't it wasn't enough to say goodbye to a beautiful person. It was over in an hour. So eventually I got to the stage of wanting to do a concert for Kayleen. So I did. I organised a concert. I got my sons to play with me and 200 people turned up and my grandson was on stage with me and the whole family was together. It was absolutely beautiful. And we played all the songs that Kayleen loved by the people she loved. And it was about that point, which was about a year after I lost her, that I realised I had a book. And then a month after that, I belonged to the Mooloolaba Surf Club, as you know. And the Mooloolaba Surf Club have quite a lot of Vietnam vets there who organise Anzac Days. And it was coming up to Remembrance Day, the 11th of November. And one of my colleagues from the surf club said, how would you feel like about singing a song at Remembrance Day, at our Remembrance Day service in the surf club? And I said, what song do you want me to sing? And he said, and the band played Waltzing Matilda. And that's a difficult song to sing,
Mm,
particularly with somebody grieving. It's about all the death and destruction, as you know, of the Anzac Day landing at Gallipoli in 1915. And I thought, well, I could probably learn to play and sing that song if that's what they want me to do. It's a new challenge. But my real challenge, Rox, was going back into that room again. I'd not been back into that room where she died since
mm.
that day. And I didn't think I could do it. And then I felt that, well, I'm going to regret this maybe if I do it, but probably regret it more if I don't. And I decided to give it a go. And this was part of this shedding the grief and returning to something really difficult, going back into the room where the last time I was there on stage was the day that she died. And that was a real breakthrough for me. And I had an epiphany as I was standing on that stage. I could see her in the audience, looking at me and looking at my grandsons, who were beside me on stage doing Elvis with Barry at our last fundraising concert. And you know what? She was happy and she was smiling. And when you lose a loved one, you tend to think of those last moments. That's not what came to me. It was an epiphany. And as her memory faded from my mind, I could almost hear her saying, as she always did, "You can do this." And I did. And I got a standing ovation because I'd not sung the song before, 550 words, and it was so melancholic, but I was too. So it suited my mood. I was feeling melancholic, and it's a very, very melancholic occasion. Beautiful song. And after it was finished, I had a breakthrough, and it was things I thought to myself after, how did that happen? Why did that happen? And it wouldn't have happened if I didn't have the courage to have a go. So that's one of the chapters in the book.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember talking to you as you were writing, and you were saying to me, "Oh, Roxy, like there's just so much stuff that's unfolding and so much that's happening. I don't know where to stop." Like it was just so many beautiful, I guess, experiences for you that came from that moment onwards.
It did, but it was really hard to start. That's why I never intended it to be a book. And that's why I think this is the best work that I've ever done, because it's a true life story, capturing all the earlier stories, but this incredible experience of grief and loss and loneliness, you know. And do you know what? You're a writer, and you had a little bit to do with mine too. And when I first met you, I asked you if you would read my early scripts, which you did, thankfully. And I asked you as a woman to look at it from a woman's point of view. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
I remember saying to you, Roxanne, I'd like you to edit it for me, read it for me. It's only early scripts, but I want Kayleen's voice to come through, because I'm a guy, a reasonable ego, as us guys have, and my previous books have really been all about me, and I don't want this to happen. And you did. You asked me some really challenging questions about what was Kayleen doing when you were a week on the road with Neil Diamond. What a great question. And that helped me to include her along the journey, and it was really. But I'll tell you an interesting story. I couldn't start it. I just didn't know how to start, and I wrote September the 9th, 2018, the day my life changed forever, and I couldn't get past that line. Call it writer's block, whatever. I didn't feel I could do it. And then a friend of mine said, "Barry, you haven't been out of your apartment. Would you like to come to the movies with me?" I said, "No, not really. I'm not really in the mood." And she said, "Well, why don't we go and see the Queen movie? It's just been released." And I said, "Oh, I think I'd like that." So I did. And what happened there was that if you've seen that movie,
yes,
it's a great movie, because it begins when they were about to do their Wembley concert, which was at the end of their career, and Freddie had AIDS, and they came back together to do that magnificent Wembley concert in front of 40,000 people, and that was the pinnacle of their career. The movie, as you recall, started with that concert, which was really the end of their career. And I came away from the movie thinking, I know how I can start this book. I've got to start with that day that I lost her on that stage in the surf club. And I went back, and it just didn't stop. It just kept tumbling out. And once I got through that, what I call the prelude chapter, I was on my way.
Yeah, absolutely. And how I guess poignant it is that in order to start, you had to go back to one of the worst days you would have experienced and recapture that, I guess, for the readers. So it takes so much bravery to allow yourself to go there.
Well, it actually told the reader in the first prelude chapter what the story was about.
Yeah, yeah.
And, yourself as a writer, you've got to get your audience in immediately. Do I want to read this story or don't I?
Yeah.
So the story of what happened to me, which was done in a very short prelude chapter, introduced to the reader what the story was all about. Once I'd got that out, I could then go right back to the day when we first met. And that was when my life in music just evolved. So it's I just feel it was not only so good for me as therapy, but it was meant to be written.
Absolutely. And when you can tap into that flow just like that, it's always a magical experience to be part of that.
It just kept going. It just didn't stop. And as I had an open mind to doors opening and walking through those doors, I was able to put some motivational inspiration into the book, which has always been about my life anyway, inspiring, helping others and motivating people through my previous business books. It just became very natural to me to be able to get the inspiration of, getting some great one-liners, like there's no finish line when you've still got something left to give. And those sorts of lines I was able to weave into the book to let the reader see that it's never over until you say it's over. As long as you've got something left to give, then there's no finish line. And then once I came across with the theme of the book, and of course the theme of the book, as you know, is on the cover: a love of music, a girl and a million, an old guitar, and how they loved him back. Once I wrote that line, I knew what the book was going to be about. It was about music and the person I loved and the guitar that I loved and how they gave it back to me. So it became a really individual, unique story, which is so important in a biography. Isn't it?
Absolutely.
Really?
It really is. Yeah.
It's so the trust in the words, and the emotion in the logic, I was able to get out because it was a true life story. It was actually happening to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just hoped that I had a happy ending.
Yeah, that's right. And from what I can tell, it has.
Well, the happy ending was the book launch that you came to, and you were up the back singing "Sweet Caroline" with me.
Yes, so that was a really fun book launch, actually. So.
It was a great day, wasn't it?
It really was, yeah, very magical. So the name of the show is the Phoenix Phenomenon, and I've called it that because every person who sits down to release a book experiences some kind of transformation. Now, I know for you it was very much a healing journey, the creation of this memoir, but I'm curious to find out if there was anything more that you learned about yourself or, a newfound appreciation for your relationship with Kayleen or anything else that came to you while you were writing these pages.
Oh, in so many ways, because it was a new life. Like we all write books, if they're a biography about ourselves and our journeys and the intelligence and experiences that we want to share with a reader, it's all about history. But when you lose somebody, that history stops then. It's the future, and it's so hard to imagine yourself in the future when history dominates all those memories. And what I learned about it was my ability to open doors for the future, purposely open those doors, say, yes, I'll sing that song, or yes, I'll do that. And it's so many wonderful things fell into place for me by having that attitude. It's so hard, Roxanne, to look toward the future in everybody's life. So people write about their history and their past and share their stories. But a lot of my story is about the future, is about the day-by-day things that, well, what am I going to do today? For example, I was about 3 months after Kayleen passed and I just began writing the book, I was ordered I was awarded an Order of Australia medal from the government.
Mm.
Australia Day honours list, which was totally unexpected, a gift of encouragement, as I call it in the book, you know.
Yeah.
A local television channel, Channel 7, called me and said, Barry, could we do an interview with you? We're talking to our local people on the Sunshine Coast who have been awarded honours. And I said, no, look, I'm really not in the mood to do that. I declined it and told the journalist that the reason why. And she said, well, look, why don't we dedicate the piece to Kayleen? Why don't we dedicate that to her? Because what I was saying to her was I couldn't have achieved this honour without her. And I felt terribly disappointed that I couldn't share it with her. But the journalist persisted. So they came over and filmed me, and it was dedicated to Kayleen. It was a lovely piece. I even got to play a little bit on my guitar. The next day, I had a call from a lady who identified herself as Marion Urban. And she said, Barry, my name is Marion Urban. I live on the Sunshine Coast. I'm Keith's mum. And I saw your piece on Channel 7 last night. And she said, I've just called Keith to tell him, and he's in the country, and he wants you to come to his concert in Brisbane on Saturday night as his guest. I thought, wow, isn't that beautiful? How wonderful. And of course, I knew Keith as a youngster growing up in Brisbane, and I went along and met Keith, and he was very gracious. And I said, I didn't think you'd ever remember me. He said, how could I forget you? I bought one of my first guitars from you at Toombul Music. And there was an instant connection. So that became a lovely part of the book, talking about how other people reached out to me. And this just contributed to a warm-hearted, beautiful story that kept writing itself. I didn't write the book at all. All of a sudden I found it was writing itself. So one thing like that led to another. And while I was very open to that, all these wonderful circumstances happened about the book writing itself about my future. And then eventually it ended up with the book launch, which you came to, which was really a wonderful opportunity to play my musical instruments again, to get back and play my guitar and tell the stories about the book like I'm telling you. But to answer your question previously, I learned so much about myself that you have to do that you don't think you're capable of or even want to do. For example, I applied to the council for a seat at Point Cartwright, a memorial seat, which they agreed to. Now, I live at Point Cartwright on the Sunshine Coast, and Kayleen and I would walk around the point twice a week, sit on the seats, and she loved the idea of the memorial seats, you know. So I was fortunate enough to be able to obtain a memorial seat at Point Cartwright in her memory. And that became a place of remembrance that I could talk to her about my book. And I didn't think I was ever capable of, she didn't answer me back, but the tingling in my fingers suggested that she was there.
Yeah.
It helped me write a great story about the fragility of life. And what happens to everybody eventually is disappointment and life and death. And it enabled me to write stories about time is life. Like, time is life, don't waste it. And there's a song that I perform at the concerts that had a lot to do with hear and say. And if you don't mind me mentioning that, it's an important part of my life, because my grandson, Archie, the latest grandson, was born with 80% hearing loss, and he needed cochlear implants. And Hear and Say, a wonderful audio company in Brisbane, supported my daughter to get him an operation for cochlear implants. So Kayleen and I would go along to watch this happening and the therapy sessions, because he was only 11 months old when he received it. And they love to have parents and grandparents involved, because we need to be shown how to communicate to help a new child who's got artificial hearing to hear, communicate. And it's all done within the family process of as we all learn around each other of how to speak, how to talk, how to behave. So this one day, we were in a music session where they were playing the Wiggles tapes, the wheels on the bus go round, round, round. And the kids were learning, and that was explained to me that how important music is to children, to be able to listen to frequency and differentiate different frequencies of sound, the spectrum of sound. And I understood that being a musician. So this particular day, I took my guitar down, told the lady to turn off the tape, and I just played the Wheels on the Bus, live, hot potato, hot potato, hot potato, hot potato. And the kids loved it, and they were jumping and they were hitting my guitar, and they were so expressive and excited, about the fact that they realised that the music was coming from me and from this musical instrument. Dimity Dorman, who is the founder of Hear and Say, a wonderful person, she asked me if I would consider doing fundraising concerts on the Sunshine Coast, where I have a community following. And she made me an ambassador for Hear and Say, and that's what I did. So we started to do these fundraising concerts at the Mooloolaba Surf Club, where I belong, and having a big group of community, they'd come and support me, and we'd have these concerts. And one of the songs that I would always do is Neil Diamond's Beautiful Noise. And you heard me do this at the book launch.
Yes.
What a beautiful noise it must be for children in Archie's world to hear sound and music for the very first time. And expanding on that theme, there's beautiful noises around us everywhere that we take for granted. Never take all these beautiful noises around us for granted, because we never know when they'll be taken away from you. So it evolved into that type of dialogue at my book launch, as you know, and all of these little stories I'm telling you eventuated in the book. So I learned so much. I learned how to be a better writer. I learned how to understand myself better. I learned how to not be so selfish within the way I was feeling about myself, and sharing my love with my family and with Kayleen through words and music. So I'm really, really pleased with the outcome. It's probably the best work I've done, and thank you for your loving support. It only helped me in the early days to put me on the right track, but I can always remember your face at my book launch. He's coming up from the street. Or it might have been Sweet Caroline. Bomb, bomb, bomb.
Definitely.
You're doing the bombs.
Yep. Definitely was loving it.
Wasn't that a lovely, joyous day, though?
It was, yeah.
It wasn't dark and gloomy at all. It was just a celebration of her life, launching our book, and everybody was singing along and having a wonderful afternoon. It was beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously you're a master of putting on a great event. So you were able to create the perfect atmosphere, if I might say. Like you said, a true celebration of Kayleen, and obviously about the launch of the book as well. So I'd love to see, some authors get so stuck in the writing and getting the manuscript together, but obviously planning ahead for book launches and things is so important. So as someone who's been running events for most of your adult life, what sort of tips or advice would you give to people when they're looking at a book launch? What are the best ingredients?
Well, pull out the best chapters in the book and tell a story about it, a bit like I told you the story of the band play Waltzing Matilda. That's a good chapter in the book. The concert for Kayleen, how I got that together, and that was the very first time that I was able to stand on stage and play my guitar again.
Yes.
Pulling the best chapters out. Getting a local politician or a member of parliament who represents your seat in your area. Like I had Andrew Wallace, who's a great MP, as you know, who launched it. Mm-hmm. Therefore, getting some dignitary or somebody to be able to gain media exposure and traction is very important. You can't just do it yourself. Surround yourself with capable people that can do sell the book as they're coming in and do the tickets and all the entry money, take the money and do the seating and organising all of that. I found it particularly hard, Roxanne, because of COVID times. I'm only talking 4 months ago that I did this.
Yes.
And I was only allowed 120 people in the room, strictly. And I turned 50 people away. That's how many people wanted to come.
Yeah.
But I had to stick to the rules. And it's all about organising. So if you think that you want to talk for an hour, forget about it, because it'll go for 2. Be really careful about having a program to work to. So I have an iPad off to the side and I have the topics that I want to talk about, and involve your audience. It's always about audience. Like we're doing now, I'm trying to involve your audience with my story through my body language and an expression of communication. If you're going to be an author, if you're going to be a writer, then you've got to accept the fact that you're a communicator. And you've not only got to be able to communicate on the pages, but you've got to be able to communicate from the stage when you're promoting your book. So surround yourself with people. Firstly, you need a compere, somebody who knows you well and read the book. Have a dignitary like an MP or a member of parliament or somebody that is well known in your electorate, that's well not only prepared to sponsor it or endorse it. And then that creates a platform of excitement. Mine was an hour. I spoke for an hour. Then we had afternoon tea, and that gave me an opportunity then to meet the audience and sign the book. And the book signing is the most important part of all, because people want to take away a memory. They want to take away a souvenir. When you're writing a book and you're doing a book launch, you want the audience to buy it, otherwise they wouldn't be there. But also the important thing is signing it, because that is their souvenir, that is their memory of a great day. So when you've picked my book up and you've see, dear Roxanne, thank you for your good friendship, was what I think I wrote to you. That's the souvenir of that moment, that day. And yes, so to be an author, you've got to be a communicator, and you've got to learn how to communicate. So in my case too, I communicate with words and music. I sing them songs. I tell them a story about the song. I tell them about little Archie and his hearing. I talk about Neil Diamond. I talk about the song and do the song, and entertain. And the key to entertainment, the key to being a speaker or a writer is 50% content and 50% entertainment. Now, a lot of people don't understand that, but why are they reading your book, or why are they listening to? You've got to entertain them. So it's 50% content, the story you're telling or the story that you've written, and the other 50% is entertainment. Entertain them, have entertaining stories. And in my case, you came along to the book launch. I think I went a half an hour over time, because they were loving the entertainment.
That's right. I don't think they could get enough of it, really.
Well, I can still see you down the back going, bum, bum, bum.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was great. And that's an important thing that you bring up with the book signing as well, because it gives the people who've experienced the book launch, obviously, then to come and have a chat to you about how that may have touch them or move them, or which parts of your story they feel really connected to. Did you find that people were really open?
Yes, but you've got to look for that openness too. You've got to look, for example, this morning, as you know, I swim at the Lullaby every morning with my good friend Colin, who is helping me do this Zoom conference now. Colin is the iPad man, and he always compares all my concerts and helps me fundraise. A wonderful friend, and it's very important to have those colleagues. And I'm using his home studio now to talk to you, you know. And I was telling him the same story I swam with him this morning, and somebody came up to me as I was having coffee and said, "Barry, I really loved your book." And that I always qualify that by saying, well, I really didn't write the book for others. I wrote it for myself. They need to know that, because that's the truth. Oh, I love this. So the next question is, what did you like about it? Is there any particular story you like? And that's when you really learn find out about yourself and about the way you are as a communicator. Now, there's a whole chapter in the book about the rise and fall of the music industry, because I was been in the music industry. So right from the moment it started off as a little 45 RPM and the communication factor 2.5 minutes that suited radio airplay, it was called a 45 or a single. Then that evolved into an LP, and then we bought LPs, and the LP evolved into a CD, and so it went. And then Steve Jobs came along with iPod, and it all disappeared.
Yeah.
And that all then went to the digital world, where the people were back to buying a song again. And there's no money for anybody in just buying one song. If you can sell a bundle of songs on an album, and then tragically, that's where the value of the music industry has deteriorated now, is there's not a lot of money involved. And now it's gone to streaming. It's even less. But anyway, I explained all of that cycle about the rise and fall. But that wasn't what I was going to tell you. This lady this morning said to me, what I liked most of all about your book was Kayleen's seat. Now, I was able, as I mentioned, to get a memorial seat for Kayleen. And it's amazing how that connects people to me through her. This lady said to me, I went looking for your seat at Point Cartwright. I found it. I sat on it. I had a chat, and I have to tell you, it was so emotional. And she said, I could understand. That to me was most inspiring, because all of a sudden I was taking my time to savor all those beautiful noises that you were talking about. You know, people walking their dogs, people sailing, paddling, the activity on the ocean, the water, leisure time, people relaxing, running, jogging, cycling. And so there's an example of that I really take that on board and ask people, well, what was your favourite chapter? So surprisingly enough, it wasn't all about the John Farnham, Jimmy Barnes, Neil Diamond, Billy Joel stories, Cliff Richard stories that I talk about, backstage moments. It's more about the future that I'm moving into. And those sort of comments, that is my future. It just helps me to see what's next. So
absolutely. And what I love about it too is that it does really share that journey of yours moving through grief. And I was curious to find out if a lot of people who have reached out to you have maybe taken some lessons or some learnings from the way that you process grief, and they're now integrating that into their lives. Have you found much of that?
Yes. Well, in my generation, my era, now a lot of us are losing partners. It's just the cycle of life. So it is helpful to people who have lost a partner to see how I'm dealing with it. So that is something for the future, because we're all going to be in that stage at one time or another where grief is going to enter our life. But also other people just getting a true life story about life's cycle, and particularly about my theme of time is life. You've only got so much time, you know, and the message is don't waste it, because you never know when it's over. So there's a lot of messages like that in the book, but it's a true life story, and that's the beauty of being able to dig deep into my soul, and like I'm doing now. And I mean, this is all ad-lib, just it's like playing tennis. You hit a ball and I'll hit it back to you.
That's right.
It's how communication works. But I've been complimented on the communication value of the book, and I'm thrilled about that. So yes, it will. I hope it will help other people. But I emphasise it wasn't a commercial project. It's not in books. It's not in bookstores, but you can buy it online, and so that's how I promote it. Just people buy it online, and I do send an autographed copy to them in the mail, and then the feedback is extraordinary.
Absolutely. And just for those who are listening, can you tell them where they need to go online to get hold of a copy?
Just to my website, barrybull.com. It's so easy, barrybull.com. How easy is that? And I can just buy a copy online, and I'll sign it and post it off. And I'm really thrilled, because my initial run has already gone. So I'm sort of on to my next And self-publishing, as you know, is not difficult. Digital printing is rather affordable. And the problem that most people have is that they don't know how to do it. And this is where I compliment what you are doing. And I suppose why I agreed to speak to you today. It wasn't just about self-promotion of my project.
Yeah.
To help you with what you're doing, because you're a remarkable woman, and what you're doing with your Phoenix project and ghostwriting and finding a career for yourself, leveraging through the stories of others to package and present through Zoom like this today is very impressive. That's the future. And I was looking forward to doing this too, to contribute to what you're doing. It's so really important to. So my book isn't so much about a commercial thing. It's full of messages that maybe can help others. But you know what? It's helping me. When that lady said to me this morning, Barry, I sat on Kayleen's seat and I had a word to her. To me, that made my day. And I know that sounds sentimental, but I am a bit of a sentimental sort of guy, as you know. You can't emotionally communicate with people if you're not emotional and you don't have that empathy that you can understand maybe what the reader needs to hear or read about. And that's what our role is as authors or communicators, is to share our stories in the best way we can that touches other people's lives.
Absolutely, and I love that you said that, Barry, because when I share this, it's to inspire people to know that that their stories are worthy and that they do have something worthwhile sharing, but B, just the importance of connection and really opening up when you do go to write a book, because that's when you have that really powerful connection with your readers and the opportunity to change their life in some small way.
Yes, and inspire them to be a writer like you're doing, and I'm inspiring a lot of other people to want to be writers too, and I'm thrilled about that because they don't know how to share their story. This was my 5th book, and as you know, I had 2 books published through Macmillan and 2 books that I self-published myself. So I had the feel for, I love the freedom of self-publishing, and because I knew how to go about it and the expectation of the end result. And the end result is that you're not going to sell any books unless you get off your backside and start promoting it. Like we're doing, you're not going to sell anything. Who cares? Who's Barry Bull? He's that guy that wrote that book about a little bull goes a long way. Oh, that's right. And you've got to get out and tell the story. So I'm continuing to tell the story through music. I've just done a couple of little concerts, not big concerts recently, again, talking about the future, whereas I videoed my book launch. And I went back over that 1.5, 2 hour process, and I extracted the best bits out of it that really worked. It's a bit like reading a book and picking out the best chapters.
Yeah.
And I learned from that. So if you're going to do something like a book launch, video it. Video your performance. See how you perform. See how your storytelling ability is good on stage. Is it as good on stage as it is behind the computer? And you learn a lot by videoing yourself. So what I've done is I've decided that I've got 3 guitars, and it's the chapter in the last chapter in the book, 3 guitars, because as you know, I was in lockdown and I had no partner and I was lonely, and I turned to these 3 old vintage guitars. And I found that each of those guitars suited a mood. Like I've got a classical guitar, so I wanted to play Rodrigo's Guitar Concerto. I'd play that on a certain guitar. My Fender, which you know about, which I want to play some shadows or rock and roll on, I'll give that a whirl. Or if I just want to sing a song, I got my old acoustic guitar. The acoustic guitar came through for me so beautifully because I had freedom. It wasn't plugged in, it was unplugged. I was able to communicate to the audience easily without any laptops or whatever behind me. So I selected the best stories out of my book launch from the video and compiled it into a 30-minute promotion, 30-minute concert, really, called Barry Unplugged. And I only do it to 50 people or less, and I don't use a microphone, and I don't plug my guitar in. And I explain to the audience that this is just you and me. And this is my guitar. It's 50 years old, and it's got a lot of stories it's going to tell you. And I make the guitar the hero, as I did on that day.
Yeah.
But I didn't realise I was creating a future on that day at the book launch. That's what I'm talking about, the future. I didn't realise I was creating my future. I didn't know what was next. But when I videoed it and I went back and I had a look at what I could see my future. My future was, let's do something unplugged. Let's do something that's intimate, that not big audiences, but people that can see me, talk to me, and sing along and hear their own voices. So I've done a couple of these on the Sunshine Coast and have been really successful. But you know what? I'm loving it. It's me. It's different and it's new and it's my future. So it's so easy to turn up. I can sing on the back of a boat. I can sing on the back of a truck. I can sing at a campfire, or I can sing on a tiny hall. But it's not just the singing, it's the entertainment. It's what I mentioned. It's the content and the entertainment. So the content is the story about the guitar and the story I'm going to tell you. And the entertainment is, now we're going to sing a song. And it's getting audience involvement and participation. And you know what, everywhere I go, I sell a heap of books because people want to be part of that experience.
Yeah.
Which is really what we gave people at Toombul Music. I haven't mentioned about that, but most people know me who didn't know me from Toombul Music, because we won all those awards, and we won more awards than any other retailer in the country. We're a Westfield retailer, and we brought the celebrities to the shopping centre, and I compared them and would speak to Farnham or Olivia or Cliff Richard or John Denver or Barnsey and interview them, and they'd queue up and buy the product. And so I thought, wow, this is fantastic. I wonder if one day I could do that with my product. It's so eager to meet Farnham or Barnsey or Cliff, and get there. Oh, I have to have the signature. I have to have it. And I realised that was the key to entertainment, is that personal magnetism of having a piece of product that can become a souvenir. So now when I'm out doing my, hot potato, they can get a souvenir. And that to your audience or to your listeners is the key to promoting your product, is to be able to engage, give entertainment, give an experience. And writing a book is about that. You either get through it or you don't. It's either an experience or it's not. And so many miss the mark. And so many local authors who have wonderful stories to tell need that assistance, like you're doing with the Phoenix, phenomenon, to know how to do it. So you're doing a great job in helping new authors learn how to write, how to paginate, how to get it professionally edited, and then how to market a product that is so that gives it experience. Your book launch is the beginning. That's the beginning. It's the big one. You beat the drum at the book launch, but then it's involving that whole audience.
Yeah, and the consistency as well. So you've been able to find a really beautiful synergy in running these concerts going forward, and that lights your fire, as well as allowing more and more people into your world and to share those experiences, which is really beautiful.
But Roxanne, I've done so many concerts in the past and worked with celebrities and all the journey that I've had in the music industry. But when I lost Kayleen, I lost the urge to ever do it again. And that's the real message in this book, that I felt that I'd reached the finish line, because there was no one to share that experience with anymore. And I was hollow. I mean, half of me was gone. But then I wrote that line, there's no finish line when you've always got something else to give. And I felt, bugger it, I've got a lot more to give you. And my friends around me at the surf club and the swimmers and people like you and Colin and my friends all encouraged me to what's next, Barry. And that's the big question in all of our lives, is what's next. And for me, what's next was very unexpected. It wasn't what I thought at all. No more big fundraising concerts, no big stages, microphones and whatever. But having a product to talk about, like I'm doing now, that I'm proud of, and share true life stories that's true. It's a wonderful privilege, and that's how I look at the work that I do. It's a real privilege to be able to share my story with others who want to engage in it, people to come to my concerts or hear my stories around words and music. It's such a privilege to be able to do that. And it's a privilege to talk to you today.
Thank you so much, Barry. And you know what? I could actually talk to you all day. I've really enjoyed hearing all of these amazing insights, and obviously the amazing advice you're giving to the listeners as well. So thank you so much for sharing all of those. And you've just brought so much to the table today. So I really appreciate your time and for coming to share all of that with us today.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Roxanne. Thank you. And